Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's A-B-A-C-O. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Bonnier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots, and welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I am Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And joining me today, as she usually does on Thursday afternoons, is my very good friend from the battle-born state of Nevada, Sharon Engel. Sharon, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thank you, Rick. It's always great to be on the show. And, of course, that battle-born, sometimes we on Conservative Commandos Radio feel like the whole nation is battle-born, don't we? Especially now when we're fighting, really, for our Constitution.
Yes. I don't think there's been a time like this when you talk about battling for our Constitution. There have not been times like this since the creation of our country. You know, Sharon, in the past, we have had outside threats where we had a battle for our way of life and for our Constitution, but now it's an internal battle. It's almost like a civil war between what's right on the conservative side and what's loony on the liberal side.
I think I'm going to age myself here, but I remember Nikita Khrushchev saying, "We will bury you from the inside." He meant that those communist ideological principles would be come into our country from the inside through our institutions, and we would be embracing them. We never thought that would happen in those days. You know, we thought, oh, what is he talking about? But now you see it coming through those institutions like education and like the media and entertainment. And really, it's a reality in our country. We see it. We're fighting for the heart and soul of our country right now. And our young people are the ones that he really meant, didn't he? He didn't mean us. He meant, I will get your children.
You know, Sharon, up on my Facebook wall, I had posted there a picture of, I believe she's a teacher, holding a sign where, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I started talking about it, my computer decides to freeze. That's why I say we never, never trust a computer. But she's holding a sign that more or less she wants to live in a just country, and that she wants to rethink communism. And I posted that up on my Facebook wall, and I put the comment on there. Then, if you want to live in a communist country, move to China and take the rest of the stupid liberals with you. You know, this is America, and they're holding up signs. You got teachers holding up signs that she wants to live in a fair and just society. She wants to live in a communist nation. That's easy to do. If she really wants to live in a communist nation, leave us alone. Pack your bags, buy a plane ticket to China, and go live there. Simple.
Rick, you know, you bring up a really interesting thought too. If communism were so good, why has it failed everywhere it's been tried? It has failed. All we have to look is at the Soviet Union and what has happened in, well, fairly recent history since Reagan said, "I'll tear down that wall." You know, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. But all we have to do is look at how those countries are doing under communism and understand that they all drift toward what? Capitalism, because capitalism is the way that a nation survives, not communism. It sounds pretty on paper, but it really doesn't work. It fails every time. And people who say, well, let's take another look at it, just really haven't looked at it realistically.
I totally agree. Totally agree. You know, Sharon, talk about, you mentioned education a little bit ago. I pulled this off the internet. I thought it was rather interesting about how much is being spent on education. Public schools in Washington, D.C. spend $29,349 per pupil in the 2010-2011 school year, according to the latest data from the National Center for Education Studies. But in 2013, fully 83% of the 8th graders in these schools were not proficient in reading and 81% not proficient in mathematics. These are the government schools in our nation's capital city where for decades politicians from both sides have pushed more federal involvement in education and more federal spending in education. We've got situations here in New Jersey, Sharon, where we got these Abbott school districts. They were the failing inner city schools that generally were run by Democrat administrations and politicians. They were doing so bad, the New Jersey Supreme Court dictated that the state take over the funding of these districts, and they're spending about $30,000 a year in these Abbott district schools. Whereas in the rest of the state, where municipalities run schools and local school boards run schools, we're spending about $15,000 to $18,000. But do you think the test scores are going up? No. Do you think more kids are graduating from high school and going on to college? No. And this just points out when you throw money at something, it doesn't solve a problem. We do have a problem educating our kids. There is a problem educating kids in inner cities, such as Washington, D.C., such as New York, such as Baltimore, Cleveland, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Dallas. And those are the cities where we are spending more to educate students than anywhere else. But there's no differences being made. These kids are still failing. And in my opinion, that's what happens when governments take over something and just throw money at a problem.
You're exactly right, Trader, but there are other things that we should pull out of this. Remember that teacher said, let's give communism a try. Remember, she was educated in this system that has been failing for over 30 years to teach our children math and reading, but even more egregiously, social studies and science. That means she wasn't taught history. That means she doesn't have any frame of reference when she refers to communism. She's totally ignorant about what has gone on before, and that's why she thinks maybe we can give it a try. You also need to think about how most states spend over half their state budget on education. And when that's happening, you would think the lights would go on and say, wait a second, we've been throwing money at this for years. And really, Rick Trader, for years, over 30 years, we have been saying money is the answer, money is the answer. And every time your legislature goes into session, it's thinking about how to tax you more so that we can have better education. It's for the children. That's why you get taxed. And when we look at it, Rick, and we see that over half of our state's budgets are going into education and we're actually getting less for more money, wouldn't you think we would consider doing something different, especially when we know what the alternatives are? When you look at homeschoolers, they far excel anything that public school has to offer. Even a private school has not as much of an excellent education as homeschooling, but still much, much better than public school. Even within the public school system, if you opt for a charter school, you're getting a much better education. And when you allow parents to choose teachers and to choose schools within the public system, better education. We know how to do this. It's just that we're not doing it, and there's a really good reason we're not doing it, and that's because of an education lobby that exists within the teachers union. Remember, they're the most powerful union in the United States, really, that teachers union, and their union dues whether they like it or not, are going to political purposes, political agendas, and political candidates. And that's why we're getting what we're getting.
You know, Sharon, my wife, like you, is a retired teacher. She was forced to belong to the NJEA, the New Jersey Education Association, which is a union. And I can remember, and these statistics go back for about 10 years now, so they were probably a lot higher now. But the NJEA at that time was taking in $140 million a year from dues from teachers. $140 million a year. And I would love to know where that money went to. Did that money go into making the schools better? I doubt it. Did it go into making teachers better? I doubt it. Did it go into helping kids become more proficient in math and reading and science? I doubt it. That money probably went to support the leaders of that union, and a lot of it probably went to support the political candidates that they chose to favor, who chooses to favor not the teachers, not the parents, not the students, but the teachers' unions. Hey, Sharon, we're up against a break, so we're going to take that break right now. We got Boardman Brett working the board for us today. That's because it's Thursday. And you're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. We're coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, as we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And on our broadcast internet partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night by calling 832-999-1199. Please don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. EnjoyAbaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
EnjoyAbaco.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And for a rebroadcast of our show, yesterday's show, you can hear a rebroadcast at 5 p.m. Eastern this evening. When we end our live broadcast, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com and click on that Listen Live link. Now, you can also hear today's show again tomorrow afternoon by logging on to vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget to check out our websites, conservativecommandosradioshow.com and ccrshow.com. Two different sites, different information on each one of them. So Sharon Engel, I finally have been able to get my Facebook working. And this picture of this young woman holding this sign that says, "I want full communism because I value a fair society." And if people would like to check out that picture, hey, go to Facebook, Rick Trader on Facebook. You can like me and friend me and all do those fun things and see this picture of this young woman holding up a sign, "I want full communism because I value a fair society."
You have to wonder about her parents, Rick. My mother always told me, life is not fair. Don't expect fair. It doesn't exist. What reality is this woman living in?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you should mention fairness, Sharon. On the front page of the local newspaper, there's a front page above the fold that they're laying off teachers in Camden, New Jersey, and the headline is, "It's just not fair." And you know, this idea of fair, life's not fair. I challenge anybody when they take their shower tonight, when they are standing there in the nude, check out your body, see if there's a little tattoo on it that says, "Life is going to be fair." It's not there, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you what's not fair, Sharon. You know, everybody wants fairness. Everyone wants equality and fairness and kumbaya. What's not fair, Sharon, is it's not fair for people to have to go to work every day to support their families, and then the government comes along and takes almost 50% of what they earn to give to families that do nothing, who choose to do nothing. That's not fair, Sharon. What's not fair, Sharon, is people go to the grocery store and they have to buy the food to nourish their families, but the government takes a huge percentage of their income to give food to people who choose to sit on their butts. That's not fair, Sharon. What's not fair is just about everybody has a cell phone, so it's almost like a constitutional right that everyone else should have a cell phone. So government gives people cell phones. Sharon, that's not fair because nothing is free. That has to be paid by somebody, and that's paid by the taxpayer. So this idea of fairness it's a crock, Sharon. There is no fairness. There's a lot of unfairness, and most of the unfairness is coming from the people that do nothing but sit on their butts and take from people who do go out and work every day.
Well, our founding fathers acknowledged that there were no fairness in this world, that fairness was an illusion and it really didn't exist, but they did give us a constitution. They did give us a form of government that allowed us to have an opportunity to achieve what we could in our lives and make our own fair opportunities, make things fair for our families, fair for ourselves in this society if we're willing to work for it. And so this is the closest we're ever going to get in a governmental type to fairness, except when your legislators are out there legislating fairness, and you go, what is wrong with these guys? They really have legislated this into an unfair situation for most of our citizens, as you point out.
Sharon, I want to say one last thing, then let's talk a little bit about our guest today. The Constitution, it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not guaranteed happiness, but life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, to me, pursuit means you've got the opportunity to go out and get it. It's not going to come to you. Pursuit of happiness means you need to chase itself. Hey, Sharon, at 3:35 today, to be exactly, we're going to be speaking with Melissa Henson. She's the Director of Communications and Public Education for the Parents Television Council. And Melissa is going to be joining us to talk about a press release that the Parents Television Council put out about the top sponsors of TV's most sexually graphic, profane, and brutally violent shows. And there's some very interesting names on this list, Sharon. In fact, one of these names keeps jumping out at me. Like, I can't believe that this corporation is sponsoring TV shows sexually graphic, profane, and brutally violent. And when we get into this list, Sharon Angle, with Melissa Henson, just about it's consistent on all these lists. The first name on this list is one of the largest corporations in the country, and I think it's going to surprise you. So, Sharon, who are you going to be speaking with today?
Well, at 4:05, we're going to have George Landreth, who's the CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. He's also an adjunct professor at George Mason School of Law, and we're going to be talking to him about the Department of Energy goes offshore with wind projects, wind farms offshore. Amazing. Now, Rick, we have our own cross to bear, if you will, with this green energy in Nevada. Everybody wants to put up a solar farm. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Harry Reid.
Harry Reid and his son does.
Harry Reid and the Chinese want to put up solar farms. But here we've got another one of these. What do you call this? This is, I'm interested to hear what George will have to say about this, going offshore with wind projects, with wind farms. And then at 4:35, we've got our good friend J.D. Gordon, who's a former defense spokesman for the Western Hemisphere, the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He's a retired naval officer, and he's going to be talking to us about listening to Europe's voices on the Russian-Ukraine conflict. It's difficult for us to understand because we're getting so much different information. The president seems to have his information that he would like to put out about the Ukraine and the Crimea and whether Russia should be in there or not. Russia, of course, has their take on it. And JD wants us to look at what the rest of Europe is seeing, and maybe they're seeing something like we were seeing during the Cold War. So it'll be interesting to see what JD's take is.
Well, Sharon, good for you. You're a bigger person than I am by calling Barack Obama president. I just can't bring myself to do that. But we're going to take a little break right now, and you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet via CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night by calling 832-999-1199. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Melissa Henson.
To be the leader in production systems technology, to be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology, it takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, fellow patriots. Welcome back once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And again, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And you could also hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show at 5 p.m. Eastern when we leave you live. You can swing on over to CPRWorldwideMedia.com, click on that Listen Live link. Now, you've got other opportunities to hear today's show. For instance, tomorrow afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us, you can hear it. And also, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Now, joining us now is Melissa Henson. She's Director of Communications and Public Education for the Parents Television Council. Melissa communicates the mission and the message of the PTC to the American public. She's appeared on a variety of TV shows. Name it, she's been on it. Fox News, O'Reilly, Your World with Neil Cavito. And she's also been quoted in extensively in many other news sources, Entertainment Weekly, Time, Newsweek, Wall Street Journal, and I could go on forever. But Melissa, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me back.
Great that you could take a little time with us. And Melissa, the Parents Television Council put out an email that caught my eye. I found it very interesting that ahead of broadcast upfronts, the PTC releases top sponsors of TV's most sexually graphic, profane, and brutally violent shows. And your press release starts, and I'm reading this for our audience. The Parents Television Council released its new top sponsors of sexual content, suggestive dialogue, foul language, and violence, which feature the companies most closely associated with some of the most offensive content on broadcast television. Melissa, those are strong words.
Yeah.
And what shocks me, and before we get into this, Melissa, just give our listeners an idea of the Parents Television Council and your mission.
Sure. Well, the Parents Television Council is a nonprofit, nonpartisan media watchdog organization. We've been around since mid-'90s, and what we're working for, what we're striving for, is to have some more responsible media content, more responsibility coming from the entertainment industry, and in the content being directed at young viewers.
Right.
So the reason we did this list is we have seen in the last several years a pretty disturbing trend of increasingly violent, increasingly vulgar, increasingly profane programming. And we know we can't really count on FCC action. We can't count on anybody to make a difference in this area, I think, except for the sponsors who ultimately pay the bills and make the programming possible.
Now, Melissa, let's talk about the sponsors, because the Parents Television Council has come up with 4 lists of sponsors, or 4 categories of shows: sexual content, suggestive dialogue, foul language, and violence. And Melissa, I was shocked that on 3 of those lists, there's one prominent name at the top of each one of those lists. A company that I certainly would not consider one of these companies that have sponsored programs that routinely deliver explicit content such as jokes about incest, rapes, pedophilia, glorifying adultery, barrages of bleeped and partially bleeped F words. But Melissa, this company just jumps out at me, and why would it when that company is McDonald's?
Right.
One of the biggest violators of sponsoring programs that parents shouldn't want their children to see. McDonald's is one of the biggest sponsors of these programs.
Yeah, and it hasn't always been like this, by the way. You know, for a long time, they were one of the most family-friendly sponsors on TV. You would see them on, you know, the TGIF programming block that used to be on ABC. You'd see them on The Wonderful World of Disney. You'd see them on American Idol. But it seems that they are trying to pursue the young male demographic, and they think that the best way to do that is by tying their ads, by buying ad time on some of these really edgy programs. So we're talking about things like Family Guy. We're talking about things, they've been on ADHD, which is this new animation block that airs on Fox, and on ADHD, they take these popular children's characters and then they pervert them. So you've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and My Little Pony and DuckTales and all these popular cartoon characters that now have introduced sexual themes and violent elements to them. And McDonald's is there on 30% of the episodes of ADHD that have aired. McDonald's was right there. So this is definitely concerning, especially considering the fact that, McDonald's still promotes itself as a family-oriented company. They tie in with these big entertainment companies. When a new kids film is being released, they've got their toys in the Happy Meals. So they still promote themselves as a company that's geared toward family audiences, but their advertising behavior certainly gives light to that.
Well, as I mentioned, the list that you have put together are lists for sexual content, suggestive dialogue, foul language, and violence. There's another fast food giant on a couple of these lists. On violence, it's in first place, and suggestive dialogue, second place. And that's at Subway restaurants. What is it with these fast food restaurants that you would think would want to attract families, would want to attract those family dialogues, but are...
Yeah, Yum Brands, by the way, too. People may not recognize the parent company name, but they probably recognize the chains that they own, which include Taco Bell and KFC and Pizza Hut. So Yum Brands is right in that same.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't make that connection. Yum Brands is number 2 for sexual content, number 2 for foul language, and it's second on the list for violence. My gosh, this is shocking. This is really shocking. Melissa, one of the things that I don't understand is you get a lot of these commercials today. A lot of these companies seem so driven to use the F word that they don't actually use the F word. They use words like flipping and freaking. Like there's a commercial out there for Comcast, or they now call themselves Infinity, that they advertise their service as so flippin' fast. Now, do people not understand what they mean when they say flipping? I mean,
they think they're pulling a fast one on us. Yes.
I mean, geez. Well, let's talk about some of the other companies that are on this list. And I'll tell you, in about 2 minutes, we'll have to take a break. Hope you can stay through the break. But, Melissa, I do believe that we Christians, we conservatives, we need to use our dollars to take a page out of Barack Obama's book, where he said, let's reward our friends and punish our enemies. Well, let's reward companies who spend their money on shows with values, and let's punish companies that choose to spend their advertising dollars on trash. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. But I think even more than that, the reason we release this list now is because this is the time of year when these companies, right now they're up in New York being wined and dined by the network executives, rubbing shoulders with the top stars of all these broadcast TV shows. They're going to be committing millions of dollars over the next couple of months in advertising to the network before the fall season even begins. So the question we need to be asking these companies is this the image that you want to project to the world? Do you want your brand to be so closely tied to, brutal violence? Do you want your brand to be so quite closely tied to graphic sexual content and profane language? And if that's not the image you want to project, then this is the time to change your advertising behavior. And that's really the message we're trying to communicate.
All right. Hey, Melissa, we got to go to a break. Could you hold on just for 2 minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle. She's out in Nevada. I'm Rick Trader. I'm back here in New Jersey. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and also on our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget to check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com and CCRShow.com. We're speaking with Melissa Henson. She's the Director of Communications with the Parents Television Council. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the
time you raced a small boat across wide open water. Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios. That of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philly and around the world on the internet. And our guest this segment is Melissa Henson. She's the Director of Communications and Public Education for the Parents Television Council. And they have put together like 4 different lists, companies that have sponsored programs that routinely deliver explicit content such as jokes about incest, rape, pedophilia, glorifying adultery. Oh, and it goes on and on. Bleeped and partially bleeped afterwards. Melissa, thanks for holding through the break. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Melissa, let's talk about some of the other companies that are on this list, because I would like to use this opportunity to let our listeners know about the philosophies of the companies where we spend our consumer dollars, okay? Now, again, our list are sexual content, suggestive dialogue, foul language, and violence. Melissa, what other companies should jump out at us on this list? Or lists?
Well, the other company that appeared on, I think all 4 lists actually, was Toyota. So, you know, obviously if you're in the car...
You mean good old wholesome Jen?
Not necessarily going to be able to go with one manufacturer over another, but it is I think somewhat telling that that Toyota is pursuing you know, this kind of ad strategy and putting their ad dollars behind some of these really, really troubling shows.
Melissa, I'll tell you, I find that funny because their biggest ad campaign now is with Jen, you know, the girl next door type, and she has all these family types coming into her showroom, you know, and portraying this idea of family together. Do you find a little bit of irony there?
Yeah, well, and, you know, frankly, a lot of these companies are at least a little bit... what should I say, surprising, I guess, to see them on there. You know, Mars, for example, it's a candy company. What are they doing on some of these shows? They're on number 3 on the list for sexual content. Target and Kohl's and Sears. You know, these are big retailers that definitely rely on family consumers for their business, and they're on the suggestive dialogue list. Actually, numbers 4, 5, and 6 on the suggestive dialogue list.
Wow.
You know, so there is some really kind of puzzling behavior that we're seeing from some of these sponsors.
We're speaking with Melissa Henson. She's the Director of Communications and Public Education for the Parents Television Council. Sounds like she's got a big job to do. And on the other line is my co-host, Sharon Engel. Sharon, you know, when I don't know about you, but I grew up on Rin Rin Tin and Sky King, Popeye Theater. You know, Sharon, remember those shows?
Yeah, I do. We used to love to sit around and watch Bonanza. You know, those were family programming, and I guess that's what I wanted to talk to Melissa about. You caught my ear when you said we can't count on the FCC anymore, and I was surprised at that, because isn't government supposed to be the answer? Aren't they supposed to be looking out for us, and especially our children? Why can't we count on the FCC?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the puzzling thing. And it's not to say that we shouldn't continue to push the FCC to enforce the law, because let's face it, there is a law on the books that prohibits broadcasters from airing indecent material during the hours of 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. when children are likely to, or 10 p.m. I think, when children are likely to be awake and watching television. There is a law on the books, but the FCC doesn't want to enforce the law. Now, you know, we could speculate about motives why, because they get a lot of, you know, the administration gets a lot of donations from people in the entertainment industry. They spend millions of dollars lobbying Congress to make sure that the laws are favorable to them. There's any number of reasons why that's the case, but I think it's pretty evident in the remarks that were made this week during the ABC Upfront presentation that indecency in the family hour is not an issue, according to ABC. They're not concerned. They moved 2 late-night shows up into earlier time slots where they're going to have even more exposure for young audiences. And ABC isn't worried about any enforcement action from the FCC, obviously.
It was interesting to me to note that you said that these companies, when they begin to advertise on these kinds of shows, they have a 30% loss. And when they are advertising on truly family-oriented shows, they have an 18% improvement. Talk a little bit about why are they not taking the hint that you lose business when you're behaving in this way?
Yeah. I don't want to speculate as to motives. I mean, there are, I think, a couple things going on. One is that there is this mythology that has been accepted by the advertising industry for a couple of decades now, that you want to get consumers. If you can get them when they're young, you have a lifelong customer, because their buying preferences somehow become set when they're young. So if you get them to start buying Colgate when they're 14, they're going to be using Colgate for the rest of their lives. And we know that that's not true. That's not actually how consumers behave at all. They're persuaded by, maybe a commercial that promises them that they'll have whiter teeth if they use Crest instead of Colgate, and so they go out and buy Crest. They're constantly changing their brand preferences. But they are sort of sold on this mythology. So that's one reason why they go after these young consumers. Young consumers, however, don't have as much money. They don't have the disposable income that older consumers have. So it's really sort of an entirely wrong-headed approach to advertising. And thank you for raising that point about this market research that has shown that advertisers can actually get a better return on their investment, more bang for their advertising buck, if they put their ads on shows that are either family-friendly or neutral, as opposed to shows that contain a lot of sex and violence.
It was interesting to me because Walmart has seen an 18% improvement when they advertise that way. And, of course, Walmart, love them or hate them, it's kind of an interesting relationship that America has with Walmart. But they do have their marketing strategy down, and you would think that these other companies would follow suit. But obviously they're taking this 30% hit, like McDonald's is, just to be on shows like, name some of these shows, Melissa, because many of us don't watch these shows. We that's not our programming choice, and so we're shocked when we hear that McDonald's is advertising on these kind of shows. So what are some of the shows that you are looking at when you make these assessments?
Yeah, well, for example, in terms of violent content, we're talking about shows like The Following and Hannibal, which have serial killers as the protagonists. We're talking about shows like Criminal Minds that often depict gory, graphic violence that is comparable to anything that you would see on a cable network. We're talking about shows like Mistresses, which was an ABC series that sort of glorifies adultery. We're talking about shows like Family Guy, which over the last several weeks has made repeated jokes about the sexual abuse of children, child molestation. It's a recurring punchline on that show. So this is really troubling content that they're buying time on.
Well, it was interesting to me to see that this is what we're looking at is these kinds of shows, and yet these people are willing to lose money in order to go there. And you say it's because they think that there is a young male population they're reaching out to. Is that what I was hearing from all of this fast food restaurant stuff? This is who they're trying to reach?
Yeah, well, see, part of the thought process in there, too, is that young males supposedly are the hardest demographic to reach because they're the ones who are most likely to be out of the house, not watching TV, out doing something other than watching TV. And because they're the hardest to reach, they therefore must be the most valuable demographic to reach. And so that's the ad strategy that a lot of these companies are pursuing. But, you know, if you look at McDonald's, for example, at the time that they were pursuing a family-friendly ad strategy and they were keeping their ad campaigns clean, some of their competitors, companies like Hardee's, Carl's Jr., Burger King, they were putting racy content in their ads. They were advertising on really problematic shows, and they weren't doing anywhere near as well as McDonald's was. In fact, according to one article, you know, at the time that McDonald's was pursuing a family-friendly ad strategy, they were outperforming, I think, like the next 5 top competitors after them. So if you rolled up Starbucks and Subway and Burger King and combined their annual revenue, McDonald's was beating them all. So clearly, what McDonald's was doing was working for them a lot better than what Burger King and Carl's Jr. were doing, and yet McDonald's appears to be following in the footsteps of their less successful competitors, which is really kind of doesn't make an awful lot of financial sense.
Melissa Hanson, as you said, that the corporate advertisers, they're meeting in New York this week to negotiate with for their advertising commitments. What do you want our listeners to do?
Well, we have a major drive going right now to put pressure in particular on McDonald's, since they were at the top of 3 of these lists. McDonald's annual shareholder meeting is going to be taking place next week. So we've created a site. You can go to winbackourtrust.com, and we've got a petition going there. You can sign the petition. We've also got on that same page flyer that you can print out and take to your local McDonald's restaurant and give it to the manager, the franchise owner. We've also got an initiative going. It's called a Thunderclap. So you can promise to send a tweet on the day of the shareholder meeting to really alert McDonald's to the fact that they need to win back our trust. If they want us as consumers, they need to win back our trust, and they can do that by not putting their ad dollars behind these sexually graphic and profane and violent shows.
Melissa Hanson, we're up against our break. One more time, the website for the PTC?
Well, PTC website is parentstv.org, but you can also take action on this by going to winbackourtrust.com.
Winbackourtrust.com. Thank you so much, Melissa Hanson, Director of Communications and Public Education for the Parents Television Council. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks so much.
And we're going to take a break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philly. the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and around the world on the Internet. Don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Don't go away. Right on the other side, Sharon and I are going to be speaking with George Landry.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Benier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, our flagship station, as we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And Sharon, we do have our next guest with us, and will you please make the introduction?
Certainly. It's my pleasure to introduce George C. Landreth. He's a successful law practice in business and litigation and is the CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. In 1994 and 96, George was a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives from Virginia's 5th Congressional District. Mr. Landreth is an adjunct professor at George Mason School of Law. He is recognized as an authority on constitutional law and jurisprudence, federalism, global warming, and property rights. He's appeared on C-SPAN and most recently Fox News, Your World with Neil Cavuto. George, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
It is great to be with you.
Well, George, to start out with, tell us about Frontiers of Freedom, its goals and missions.
Sure. Well, Frontiers of Freedom is essentially a think tank that was started by Senator Malcolm Wallop from Wyoming. And when he retired from the U.S. Senate, he wanted to continue to try to push American policy towards conservative principles. He was a friend and ally of Ronald Reagan's, and he believed in peace through strength. He believed that we could spend our money better than Congress could. We could raise our families and run our businesses better than they could. And he supported legislation and laws that would make that possible. He, so, you know, we certainly work on some national security issues. We try to keep the size and scope of government as small as possible. You know, we're fighting this whole thing on the giving away the internet. We certainly fight tax boondoggles like, these offshore wind projects. There's all kinds of things we work on, but always in mind for us is the concept that people need to be allowed to control their own lives and not have the federal government do it for them. So,
well, George, you mentioned offshore wind projects.
Mm-hmm.
Offshore wind projects. Talk to me a little bit about what is this proposal, offshore wind project?
Sure.
What does it really look like?
Well, they look like they're these big, huge. I mein, for example, we could take one that's been proposed to be built off of in the Nantucket Sound, off the coast of near up in the Massachusetts, Boston area, and that area is they're going to be hundreds of feet tall. They're the equivalent of like a 44-story building. They cost a boatload of money. They don't work very well. They produce energy that costs about 3 times what your more standard ways of generating electricity cost. And so then you ask, well, then why do they do it? Well, because the government gives huge subsidies and huge tax benefits. In fact, recently, I don't know if you saw this or not, but there was an article, and one of the major funders or investors in these programs said that he wouldn't do it except for all the tax benefits he gets for it. He said it would make no sense to do it all except for all the subsidies they get. And that's the only reason they do it. So I don't know about you, but when the only thing that makes it economically viable is the fact they're picking the pocket of the taxpayer, that doesn't sound like a very good deal. It produces energy that's very, very expensive. It produces energy that's intermittent, and that's a problem because if you want to power a superpower economy, you can't have power when it's windy and not when sometimes it's too windy so they can't run them, and sometimes it's not windy enough and they can't run them. And so what they use for backup power is diesel generators. And then they tell us this is all about green energy. I don't know about you, but I scratched my head on that one.
So it isn't a romantic outlook then. It's not like going to Holland and seeing the windmills in the bays there and just that sweet generation of electricity that's just been going on for centuries in Holland. That's not what we're talking about here, is it? No.
We're talking about, the reality is windmills can work in some places in certain applications. I think historically windmills were used in Holland to pump water out that was leaking through the dikes. And farmers maybe out on in the range may use them to power a pump that pumps water out of a well to help feed livestock. And that's fine, because you don't have to have the water pumping at 24/7. You just need to fill troughs and periodically, and as long as it's windy, every day for a little while, then you can do that. But the problem is you can't actually power an economy on that. And these, of course, are these industrial strength ones, so they're very expensive. And so really what it comes down to is they produce unreliable, very, very expensive energy, and the way that they make it work for the investor is they make you pay for it twice. One, you pay for it through tax subsidies and loan guarantees, and then you pay for it a second time as the ratepayer, because they require power companies to then buy this very expensive energy, and of course then that is passed along to you in the form of higher electricity bills. So you get the privilege of paying for this boondoggle twice.
Wow. And
it's a great deal. It's a great deal.
And these are proposed projects now that they're working on in New Jersey and Oregon and Virginia, off these coastal shores of the United States. And when we talk about these projects, it's not just one big windmill, is it? Or is it?
No,
what are we looking at?
It's typically scores or hundreds of them. And they create all kinds of other problems as well. In the Nantucket area, there are concerns about what it will do to wildlife. I'm sure everyone's heard about all the birds these things slice up. But on top of that, there are the and by birds I don't just mean garden variety crows or something. It's often eagles and endangered birds as well, waterfowl and things like that. But on top of that, you have what it does to radar. It gives you false readings in areas where you have a lot of traffic, which is most of the East Coast air traffic. It gives you much less reliable radar. So, and for military bases that are nearby, it actually messes up their radar for military purposes. So, I don't really see. I'd be excited about windmills if they could produce energy in a cost-efficient manner and lower my electric bills. But when they're raising my electric bills, and then I'm having to pay for it in my tax bill too, because I'm subsidizing it, and I'm paying the higher rates on top of that, and then it has all this other static that it creates and all these other problems. I'm like, why are we doing this? Is this just so that we can, some sop to some friend of the administration's? That's what Solyndra turned out to be. Solyndra. And just to put this in perspective, Solyndra was a smaller amount of money. It was peanuts compared to this stuff. This is, Solyndra on steroids. And at least with Solyndra, we weren't paying for it twice. We only paid for it once. Just the subsidies and the lost loan guarantees. But we weren't being required to pay for it again on our electric bill. So this is, if you're a taxpayer and you were frustrated and angry about the waste and the fraud and the abuse that they saw in Solyndra, this should have people's hair on fire.
Well, you're exactly right, George. And I want you to talk just a little bit about the exact cost. Now, we're seeing $141 million, but that's not all the cost, is it? We've got to build this, and we're talking about a farm, not just one. We're talking about hundreds, as you said. So let's really talk about, is it just $141 million, or does this?
Yeah, there's a recent report that just came out a few days ago, and that was a recent Energy Department approval of monies for a couple different of these quote innovative technology projects, and so they and the total on that was $141 million. But that doesn't even count the tax. That's just one facet of what the government hands them. For example, there's the tax code, which is used to hand out tax credits to these people that turn out, and I don't just mean deductions, I mean credits, and they turn out to be the single biggest piece of all of this. And so the $141 million that made the headlines was kind of like the appetizer. And but you have on top of that, you have the tax credits, which in the case of these typically dwarfs everything else, and it's what drives it and makes it so that they can do it. Because otherwise, no private company would do this. They only do it because the government essentially gives them all this extra money. And then that makes it so when they lose money, they didn't actually lose money because, they will lose money on the windmills. But the government's going to walk in and hand them $141 million up front, and then every year for the next 20 years, they're going to be giving them these tax credits. And then, of course, they've passed laws requiring utilities then to buy the energy that they create, which is much more expensive, at about 3 to 4 times the current rates. So all of this is what makes it possible. And the only analogy I can give you is, let's assume that I were going to build a pizza parlor in town. And I said, I got this great model. I'm going to make pizzas. They're going to cost about 3 times what a normal pizza costs. So they'll be about $45-$50 a pizza.
Hey, George, we're up against a break. Could you please hold through our break? We got more questions for you.
Sure. All
right, and we are going to take a break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And don't forget, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show at 5 p.m. when we go off the air, please log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. Please don't go away. Sharon and I will be back to continue our conversation with George Landreth with Frontiers of Freedom.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And our guest this segment is George Landreth. He is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. And we're talking about the Department of Energy gives offshore wind projects $141 million. George, thanks for holding through the break. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's great to be with you.
George, you know, when you and Sharon were talking about this and about these wind projects, there's one that's proposed off the coast of New Jersey, the Fisherman's Energy Project. Why do they call it the Fisherman's Energy Project? What does windmills have to do with the fishermen?
That's a good question. My suspicion is the fishermen aren't too wild about it. Because, I know that I've spoken with folks who are professional fishermen, not just recreational ones,
right,
in Massachusetts, and they are not at all pleased about this. They view it as very problematic. It's going to endanger their ability to navigate safely and to accomplish the things that they would like to. In terms of professionally being able to, if you're a fisherman, you want to, one, be able to fish, and two, you want to be safe while you do it.
Right.
And they feel that it's going to make fishing more difficult and less safe. And for those who kind of understand, being a commercial fisherman is actually one of the most dangerous professions out there.
Right.
And yet, so anyhow, they probably named it that for propaganda reasons.
Well, George, what I was getting at, they always come up with these names that have absolutely nothing to do with the project or represents a total opposite view of this thing. That's what I was
the perfect
getting.
example, that's the Affordable Care Act.
There you go. Hey, George, you were talking...
There's no requirement that they, truth in labeling here. It'd be nice if those laws applied to Congress, but they never do.
Yeah, there you go. Truth in labeling. Hey, George, you and Sharon were talking earlier, and you mentioned that energy that come from these wind projects usually cost about 3 times more. Here's a little piece of information for you, George. Ratepayers in the state of New Jersey are forced to pay 16 times more for wind and for energy produced by wind and solar than traditional methods of gas, coal, or nuclear or oil. So, and on top of that, this project, this fisherman's energy project off the coast of New Jersey. Do you know who the prime advocate of this is, George?
I don't.
That it would be that Chris Christie guy. You ever hear him?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, he wants to.
He's had some bad positions on a lot of other issues too, so that actually shouldn't be that shocking, sadly.
Well, George, actually, he wants to borrow $100 million to put up this wind farm off the coast of New Jersey. $100 million. Now, the state's already about $3 billion in debt, so that means $100 billion that they would have to borrow to put this thing 17 miles out at sea, to force the ratepayers of New Jersey to spend 16 times more for that energy. And I would like to know what is going to happen to this wind farm when the next Hurricane Sandy comes up the coast.
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. Some people, mistakenly think that, in a heavy wind, it'll produce a lot of electricity, and the answer is no. And when it gets too heavy, it actually has to shut down. It has to be within a certain range. Some wind is helpful. Too much wind is not helpful. Obviously, no wind is not helpful. But on a practical level, I don't understand why any politician is supportive of this.
Especially a guy like Chris Christie, who calls himself a conservative, but I doubt that. George, have you ever flown to, say, London?
No, I have not.
Well, I have a couple of times. I've been fortunate enough to go to Europe a couple of times, and flying over, anytime I'm in the airplane, I'm the guy with the nose pressed to the window, okay? Up all night, from that flight across the Atlantic, takes off from New York or Philadelphia late in the afternoon, and you're flying all night, and you're flying. You reach the Irish and coast of England in the very early morning, and looking down, you can see all these windmills out at sea. Now, they've had a severe problem with these windmills out at sea, George, and maybe it's good that they're out at sea because they have a propensity to start fires.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. If you've ever, if you Google windmills, you'll see some pretty impressive ones where, at night they're on fire and they're spewing and raining sparks. And, and all I can say is I wouldn't want to be around there.
George, have you ever been to Hawaii?
Yes, I have.
Well, the Big Island, this most southern tip of the Big Island of Hawaii is the southernmost tip in the United States. And down that way is a huge wind farm, George. And by the way, that windmill farm, it's only 27 years old, but it's sitting abandoned. Now, you would think if windmills would work anywhere in the world, it would work in Hawaii where you have a constant breeze.
Right, and no land, an island like that, if you put it off on the tip of it, you from any direction, really, you don't have any blockage of wind and so forth. The trade wind should always be hitting it. This is the problem when it comes down to energy issues. There are people who just almost as a matter of faith or religion have the viewpoint that traditional ways of producing energy are bad and that we need to do just pursue other things, whatever other is. And that other can be consuming food to make energy, which increases hunger and starvation around the world. But that's okay, because after all, what's really, as a matter of faith and religion, traditional energy is bad.
George, one last question before...
There's no logic to it. It's really almost just a matter of, for them, a religion. Now, I have my religious beliefs, and, but energy is not one of them.
George, one last question before I throw it back to Sharon. As this article points out, the Department of Energy is giving $141 million to wind farms, off-sea wind farms. As you and Sharon discussed, it's not the total cost from the bill, it's just a fraction. With all this money that they want to spend on these wind projects, how many true energy plants can be created, either coal or gas?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is a lot of this money that we're putting into essentially bogus energy projects that will cost us money and not produce much energy. You make a very good point. If we were to turn that around and reinvest that into real energy, we could do a lot better. Now, the reality is we don't actually have to invest a dime into building regular power plants. If the government would just allow them to be built and get out of the way, they would be built naturally, because the companies who sell the electricity, just like a movie theater, they want to build it if it will be used and if it can, sell its product. You have other countries that are building, China and India, that are building power plants, more than a dozen a week across as their economies ramp up and build up. We don't have to build a dozen a week, but it would be helpful if we build a few more here and there, because we are not keeping up with the demand, and we are making ourselves further and further behind as we waste money on these boondoggles that will do nothing for us. We're just not going to get the power we need to run a real first-class, world-class economy on a bunch of windmills.
Thanks. We're talking with George Landreth about wind farms, and George, you used two words that really sparked my interest. First is boondoggle. Whenever I hear boondoggle, I want to know who's really making the money. And then you talked about politicians being involved in this boondoggle, and of course we have the biggest boondoggle in Nevada with solar farms here and directly connected to Harry Reid, and we know who's making the money there, Harry, his son, and a Chinese contractor. But the third thing that you said was religion, and I'm wondering about the global warming religion. So could you tie those all together? Boondoggle, politicians, religion, who's making the money? Who should we be casting a suspicious or jaundiced eye at?
Well, when it comes to wind energy, obviously the people who make the money there are the companies that are proposing the plans and getting the tax subsidies. One of them, quite frankly, is the Mr. Berkshire Hathaway.
That would be that Warren Buffett guy, I think.
Yeah, there we go, Warren Buffett. I was having a mental freeze there for a second. Warren Buffett is the one that was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't even invest in this stuff if it weren't for all the tax benefits. That's the only thing that makes it financially viable for me." So that lets you know that the people who are making the money on this are the ones that are pushing for the projects. One. So I think the question then is how the politicians are tied in. Is you generally will find a tie financially between the politician and the person who's running the scam to get the government benefits for it. And then the religion aspect is another part of it, because I think some people, for them, they may not be getting money out of it, but they just are so blinded by their false faith in this climate change and green energy that it makes no difference to them what the plan is. As long as it makes them feel warm and fuzzy inside, they support it, and they are prepared to, and so I think of a mixture of politicians, the old-fashioned kind of greedy politician who can, send some money back to his buddies. You have, of course, the rent seekers and the investors who kind of say, yeah, as long as the government will pad my pocket, I'll build stupid things. because that's what they're, I mean, you could get people to build, 5,000-foot scarecrows. Not that they do any good, but if you give people enough money to it, they'll do it. And that's kind of what we're doing. And then, of course, you have the people who just blindly believe that this is somehow good for Mother Earth.
Yes. We're talking with George Landreth, who's the president and CTO of Frontiers for Freedom. George, would you give us a website, some way that we can follow your organization, follow you?
Sure. It's very easy. ff.org, like frontiersfreedom.org, FF.
Frontiers for Freedom, President CEO George Landreth, talking to us about boondoggles, politicians, the religion of global warming here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Thank you so much, George, for being our guest today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
After this break...
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philly, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And Sharon Engel, we do have our next guest with us. Will you please make the introduction?
It's always my pleasure and honor to introduce J.D. Gordon. There's a former Defense Department spokesman for the Western Hemisphere in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, serving under both Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and Secretary Robert Gates. Gordon, a retired naval officer, also served as the Vice President Communications as well as Foreign Policy and National Security Advisor to former presidential candidate Herman Cain. Gordon is contributing columnist and commentator to Fox News, The Washington Times, Human Events, Capital Insider, and other media outlets, and is a Fox News contributor. JD, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thank you, Sharon. Always great to talk with you and Rick.
Well, it's always great to have you on, JD, and we've been looking at an article that you wrote, listening to Europe's voices on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Could you first just give us kind of an overview of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, what that conflict is all about, why we're hearing so much about the Crimea, all of those little intricacies, and then we'll go into what others are saying about it.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this very important topic today. Well, basically, Vladimir Putin is reconstituting a greater Russia. And I don't mean the Soviet Union, but I'm talking about empires long ago. And the reason why Vladimir Putin's doing it is there's two reasons, really. It's twofold. The first one is because he can. He realizes that President Obama is too weak to do much of anything about it. He realizes the European Union is too weak to do anything about it because they rely on him for so much of their natural gas. About a third of their natural gas comes from Russia in the European Union. So, number one, he can. Number two, Vladimir Putin feels he must, because Russia has a severe population decline right now. 20 years ago, Russia was 148 million people. Today it's 143 million. And it's shrinking. It's shrinking because it leads the world in three key factors. Number one is abortion. Leads the world in abortion. 53 out of 1,000 women have abortions per year in Russia. That's about triple the rate of the United States. And people think it's high here. It's triple that in Russia. It's the highest in divorce in the world, 5 out of 1,000. And it's the highest in alcoholism in the world. The average life expectancy for a man in Russia is 64 years old. When I was there about 15 years ago in Russia, it was 59. So doing better, but not much. Alcoholism is very rampant. But the big but is, if you look at the Muslim areas of Russia, the south part of Russia, the breakaway republics of Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia, the North Caucasus, where they've had over 100,000 deaths since 1994 in the fighting for their separatist movements there. The Muslim area of Russia is about 20% of the population, but they're growing significantly, dramatically. There are more children, Sharon, today in kindergarten that are Muslim than Christian in Russia. So by 2050, Russia could be a Muslim-majority country, and that scares Vladimir Putin to death. You wouldn't have Russia as you know it today. It'd be a Muslim-dominated country by 2050 just due to population shifts. So what Vladimir Putin's trying to do is recarve out areas that he thinks belong to Russia, and not just he. The Russian people had this Pew poll recently, and more Russians believe that there are parts of what should be Russia that are in other countries. That's why Russia occupied 2 provinces of Georgia in 2008. They still have them, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. That's why Russia took over Crimea. That's 2 million more people. Basically, in the eastern part of Ukraine, there are Russian-speaking majorities there, which are why Donetsk and Luhansk, 2 regions that comprise together about 6.5 million people, that's why separatists had referendums there. So Vladimir Putin is trying to reconstitute a greater Russia.
Wow. Now, that puts a whole different spin on it than just what we have become familiar with, I guess, in the last 40 years, which is the Soviet Union just going in and putting their brand of communism on everything and taking things over wholesale. So this isn't really a resurgence of the Cold War. This is different than that, isn't it, J.D.?
You know, it's very different. It's very different in many ways because during the Cold War, communism was this ideology that competed with capitalism. They believed in a totalitarian form of government. Their state religion was atheism, essentially. So a lot of people over here called them godless communists. That's essentially what they were. But just because communism went away didn't mean Russia went away as a rival. In fact, one of the greatest ironies today, and I had a column a couple weeks ago in the Washington Times about the Obama bizarre world order. And that bizarre world order is one of the things I talked about and I heard a lot about when I was in Europe. I spoke at a European Parliament event a couple months ago. And one of the things I heard that was greatly ironic was that in a time where the President of the United States backs Islamists in places like Syria, for instance, the Islamists are going after Christians. Who's the guy that's actually defending the Christians there? Vladimir Putin. That's very strange. Same thing in Egypt. President Obama backed the Muslim Brotherhood. They took over Egypt in 2012, 2013. Guess who suffered? The Coptic Christians. Churches were burned. Islamists went after Christians. So, by the same token, we're seeing President Obama, who was backing Islamists throughout the Middle East and North Africa. President Obama's first act in the White House was to try to close Guantanamo and give Al-Qaeda and Taliban constitutional rights in U.S. civilian courts, where his big secret was a lot of judges could just let them out due to lack of evidence. President Obama didn't tell us that part. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin's a guy that's defending Christianity and Christian values. It's very ironic. And, Russia's doing a lot of propaganda to reach out to the religious right in Europe and the United States right now. And there's a good reason for it. It's because he's doing something about it.
Well, now the rest of Europe is watching this, and they're concerned. Tell us what their concern is. Why wouldn't they want Russia to get back their territories? Why wouldn't they want Russia to be the, if you will, the point on this anti-Islamic movement? Why wouldn't they want that? What concerns them?
Well, they do want to push Russia back as far as them not having parts of Ukraine, parts of Russia. They do want that, but they realize that the U.S. and EU weaknesses just embolden Russia. And one of the main points about this is energy security, because Europe's green movement is so strong. Basically, they don't have things like we have here as far as hydraulic fracturing, fracking. They've forbidden that in Europe, and so they're really tied to Russia's energy. About 50% of Russia's GDP, Russia's economy is over $2 trillion a year. About 50% of Russia's economy is oil and natural gas. About 30% of Europe's natural gas, which they use for heating, home heating, transportation, etc., 30% comes from Russia. The closer you get to Russia, that number goes from 80 to 100%. Like in Hungary, for instance, it's 80% of their natural gas. Finland, 100% of their natural gas. The Baltic states, 100% of their natural gas. So the European Union, 28 member states, really feel that Russia has them over a barrel, because Vladimir Putin could basically raise the prices, which he's doing to Ukraine. Vladimir Putin's nearly doubled the price of natural gas to Ukraine, and oil, too, through Gazprom. So basically, Europe is afraid of Vladimir Putin. They want to sanction him. They want to punish him, but they don't want to do it too much where all of a sudden they lose an important trading partner, or Russia punishes them too much with oil and natural gas prices. Because, those are all democracies. If all of a sudden gas doubles and people can't afford to heat their homes, there'll be riots on the streets and people will vote those leaders out. So they're afraid of that, too. So they want to push back on Russia, but they're just afraid to do it. And they realize that Barack Obama is probably not going to have their back.
Well, he's not got the American people's back either, J.D. Gordon. We're speaking with J.D. Gordon right here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. We have to go to a short break. J.D., will you stay with us through the break?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll be right back with J.D. Gordon after this break here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m. when we end our live broadcast, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show, place for that is cprworldwidemedia.com, cprworldwidemedia.com. And we'll also rebroadcast today's show tomorrow afternoon at vigilantlibertyradio.us. Don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Sharon and I will be right back with more with J.D. Gordon.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philly, and around the world on the internet. And joining us today is J.D. Gordon, great friend of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, and is a Fox News contributor. J.D., thanks for holding through the break. We appreciate your time, my friend.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
J.D., you know, listening to the conversation you had with Sharon triggered a couple of questions that I have. Religion in Russia. Do we know if Putin is a Christian? You talked about him defending Christians. Is he himself a Christian?
Well, he claims to be. I mean, he's the guy now talking about Christian values, and I think one of the things that's important to see about Russia is, since it was essentially godless, atheist for so many years, they're amoral. That's why they have so many abortions, divorces, drug and alcohol problems. I mean, nearly 1 million people are HIV positive in Russia,
wow,
I believe, because of the drugs there. So basically, one of the reasons why Putin's come out so strongly for Christian values these days is because his population is declining, because it's really social problems on steroids over there. That's one of the reasons he's so pushing back strongly against the gay agenda over there, the LGBT agenda, and that's one of the reasons Europe is pushing back on Russia. Did you see the results of the Eurovision contest the other day, guys, this weekend?
No, what was that, J.D.?
Well, the Eurovision contest is one of Europe's biggest things every year. It's been since 1956. That's where ABBA became famous. In 1974, they won for Waterloo. Anyway, it's a big contest, singing competition. Every country in Europe has a contestant, including from Russia. Well, guess who won this year? A bearded guy, a bearded lady, a person dressed like a lady with a beard. It was like a transgender guy from Austria, whose song was terrible, by the way, anyway. He didn't even sing well. He won, hands down. And it's crazy because Europe, basically, they're so far to the left on so many things. They wanted to send a message to Russia, so a bearded lady, basically, was a guy, actually, with a split personality, won the Eurovision Song Contest over the weekend. I couldn't believe it.
You know, J.D., I got to throw us off the track for a minute because I saw something yesterday on the internet, and you're a great person to ask about. I saw that the military might accept, our military might start accepting transgenders. Did you see that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what they've been talking about as part of the I guess, basically once you set the momentum in for repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it opens up the door for everything. So LGBT, I mean, the T stands for transgender.
Right.
So that's the way that President Obama is trying to make the military lighter, smaller, and more progressive.
Well, I'm sick and tired of our military being used for social experiments like that. But, JD, I wanted to bring us back to our conversation about Russia and Ukraine. You mentioned, JD, you mentioned all these social changes that have taken place, or all these social vices in Russia, like abortion, alcoholism, divorce. Has that increased since the fall of communism?
I think that abortions were also pretty big during the Soviet days. I took a look at that too. I think that it's probably on a little bit of the decline right now, just because Vladimir Putin's pushing so hard against it. He's actually giving monetary rewards for women to have more children. He's making it harder to get abortions. So, I mean, I think the tide's starting to turn there, but Russia's been a mess for a really long time, even during the Soviet days, as far as the values go.
You know, one more thing, JD, before I throw it back to Sharon. Isn't it strange that a leader of the Soviet Union is expressing the values that we conservatives like to express? I mean, don't you wish we had a president like Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, you know.
Other than he's a bad guy, but, you know, geez, JD.
I know. I couldn't imagine it. Like I wrote in the column, I couldn't imagine it. Growing up as a kid in New Jersey in the 80s, 70s and 80s, I could not imagine that a leader of Russia would be the guy that's trying to tell us about values, and the President of the United States is the guy that's supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, it's a nightmare. It is actually a nightmare.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about the politics of this nation, because we've got a presidential election coming up in 2016, and of course we're banding around who should be the leader. And we kind of downplayed foreign policy in the last couple of go-rounds. Everybody wanted to talk about domestic policy rather than foreign policy and our image on the world stage, or our lack of it. And it was interesting in your article, you said that Jaakko Eloniemeä, I don't know if that's right, L-O-M-E, he's Finland's former ambassador to Washington, said Putin is overplaying his hand, though that's easy to do when others underplay theirs. And I think that's a direct hit at Barack Obama's lack of leadership here. Would Hillary Clinton be any better, J.D. Gordon?
No, I don't think she would. I mean, maybe 1 degree better, but that's not saying much. I mean, for Hillary Clinton, I would just point to 3 things. Number 1 is Benghazi. She wasn't doing her job. She was traveling all around the globe instead of providing security for the consulate in Benghazi, the U.S. mission there, when she knew there had been 200 al-Qaeda attacks since Gaddafi got killed. So she didn't do her job there. She didn't do her job for Boko Haram either. Boko Haram is a terrorist organization. They've been around since 2002. Bin Laden even gave them $3 million for al-Qaeda starting in 2002. And if Boko Haram had been designated a terrorist entity, we could have gone after their funding, but they weren't designated, even though she had the decision, she had the choice to do it. There was such a lobby from the Muslim Brotherhood in this country and groups like CARE that she didn't do it. And so she failed in that too. And it also, in general, her leadership was just lacking. I don't think that she would do any better than Barack Obama.
Well, when we talk about this Benghazi situation, you've been in Washington, D.C. You've watched these committees come and go, and I just want your take on what's going to happen now that we have a special committee on Benghazi led by Trey Gowdy. What do you think is going to happen there? Is this something that really can have legs and help the cause as far as getting to the bottom of this and going forward?
I think so. I think we still may find out more information. You know, everybody thought all the information was already out. There were committees, Republicans led, in 3 different House committees: Armed Services, Intelligence, and Government Oversight and Reform. The Senate Intel Committee had this massive investigation too, right? So everybody thought, well, all the information's out. But guess what? It wasn't. Tom Fitton, the Judicial Watch, great guy that I know pretty well, he had this FOIA request for more information. Sure enough, the White House basically had to divulge more details. This email shocking, this email from Ben Rhodes, who was a senior national security advisor for President Obama. He was the one that wrote this memo to Susan Rice with the objectives to play up the video, when they knew on day one it was a terrorist attack. And so the White House deliberately misled the American people. You know, Sharon, I was a Pentagon spokesman for 4 years, 2005 to 2009. I used to work with the White House, State Department, CIA, DOJ, just about every day. I mean, every day was certainly elements of those. I could never imagine talking points that got distorted or objectives that got so distorted. It was shocking to me to even read Ben Rhodes' email. And, you know, on the email trail, there was Jay Carney and all these other very senior people in the government. I cannot believe the level of deceit that these people try to put upon the American people. It's shocking. I'm still shocked when I see it today.
Well, part of the shock, though, I think, is we knew about this 2 years ago when Mitt Romney ran, and he didn't press that issue. Why do you think he didn't press? What was he afraid of? Why haven't we pressed until now?
He was afraid of the press and the polls, because when Benghazi first happened, he was pretty tough on President Obama for the first day or two. Then all the press said, Obama said, how dare you question my leadership? We're at a time of crisis. And all the press basically just repeated it, Obama and his staff. And then the press, the mainstream media, 80% or so are basically on Obama's side. There was this outcry, Mitt Romney, how unpatriotic. And he got scared. And he never brought it up again. So that's really unfortunate. It's sort of like, imagine a soccer game, and it's on a hill. Well, the goalposts on the Democrat side, because they got most of the mainstream media, is on the top part of the hill. The goalpost down there that they kick the goal on is at the down part of the hill. So the Republicans are always going to fight an uphill battle for the presidency, and this is just an incident to illustrate why that was the case.
So to keep on the right side of this uphill battle, to make it more in our favor, what's your suggestion going into 2016? Can we win it against Hillary, even though we know now that she is part of the cover-up?
Well, for foreign policy, I think Republicans just have to stick to the facts and keep pressing them and make sure they're known loudly, just like for the Benghazi Special Committee. That's why it's going to be important to have that Trey Gowdy in charge of that, a career prosecutor, and so I think he's going to do a good job. But on the grand scheme of things, because foreign policy is just an element of what gets the president elected, the Democrats had a lot better ground game for a long time. Chairman Priebus at the RNC has a lot of good messages about how the RNC needs to do a better job of getting the vote out. And there are a lot of wedge issues that Republicans get stuck on, unfortunately, that turn off too many independents. So I think it's getting out the vote and picking your battles. And I think the battle that ought to be picked first is what the Constitution says first, and that's to provide for an Army and Navy, to provide for our national defense. National defense, in my book, ought to be number one. Unfortunately, it gets to be number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for a lot of people, and they pick these other issues, wedge issues, that we end up losing over. That's just my opinion.
Well, and in your article, you point out that with $1 trillion in defense cuts in progress right now, that's what's causing this whole upheaval in Europe, and that's why Putin is feeling like he can be brave in all of this, that he can just go ahead and, as the Finnish ambassador said, overplay his hand. We've been talking to J.D. Gordon here on Conservative Commandos radio show. J.D., could you give us a website, some way that we can follow you and get more information?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my column today is on the Daily Caller, and that's dailycaller.com. And my website is protectamericatoday.com. That's www.protectamericatoday.com.
So we're at protectamericatoday.com and the Daily Caller if you want to learn more from J.D. Gordon. J.D., thank you so much for being our guest here on Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you, Rick. Always a pleasure to join you both.
Great to speak with you again, J.D. And don't forget, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, log on to patriotsride.org, patriotsride.org. And when we leave you just in a couple of minutes at 5 p.m. Eastern, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show, place for that is CPRWorldwideMedia.com, CPRWorldwideMedia.com. You could also hear a rebroadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And Sharon Engel, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. I also want to thank our other guests, Melissa Henson, George Landreth, and our most recent guest, J.D. Gordon. But for right now, we got to run, we got to go. Take care, God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Huge thanks to our co-hosts, contributors, patrons, callers, and our friends at WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460, where we broadcast live every Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 to 4 p.m. Central. Look for us on the internet at www.ccrshow.com. Until next time, we are the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.